You are Locked On Hawks Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Right back with you one more time, DeShaun Tate. Appreciate you guys for joining me on yet another episode of the Locked On Hawks Postcast, the only official Atlanta Hawks Postcast, recapping each and every single game all the way through the regular season, including for the NBA playoffs, which I'm pretty excited to see that we could be having some real conversations about potentially being a lock for that playoffs. But we got some things that we got to go through first. We'll talk about all that on tonight, of course. And gonna obviously start some things out in the first segment. We're talking about the Hawks may have potentially showed their hand a little bit too early in preparation for obviously some very critical teams that we are going to have to be pretty much looking at right in the face, right in the mirror of getting ready to play here within the next few days. So we'll touch on how well they did from that standpoint, and then a little bit about how the spray saved the day, obviously getting out and some of the perimeter shooting being something that really helped benefit the Atlanta Hawks on tonight in the 147-134 win over the Utah Jazz. So we'll talk a little bit about some of that, including, last but certainly not least, a little bit about the perfection. One of the guys that is representing the Atlanta Hawks went out there and looked about as close to perfect as perfect can look. So we'll definitely tap into all of that. Not before I inform you all to let you know that this particular episode of the Locked On Hawks Postcast is brought to you by FanDuel, where right now, not later, but right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet win. So just remember to make sure you're tapping into that and taking full advantage of all the things that great things that we're able to bring you here at Locked On. Make sure you go ahead and get that $250 in the bonus bets when your $5 bet win. That's all you gotta do is just put up $5 and you get $250 in return. I mean, listen, just go ahead and make that thing do what it do so you can have a couple more extra dollars to play with. Jumping right into it as far as tonight's game. I mean, let's just be really transparent, right? We don't want to sugarcoat. You know, we don't play radio. We don't play that on this program. What they call a spade is a spade, or I don't know what the cool kids are calling it. Keep it a buck. Keep it a bean, right? The reality is this. The Atlanta Hawks had to go out there and take care of business on tonight. Why? Because that's the Atlanta Hawks. And why? Because that's the Utah Jazz. Sometimes it's just that simple. We don't have to dumb it down. We don't have to overanalyze situations that, you know, isn't necessary to do such things. We're talking about an Atlanta or a Utah Jazz team that's starting Collier, Colin Sexton, Johnny Juzang, Bryce Sensabaugh, and Flip. Kyle Filipowski. When you are the Atlanta Hawks and you have the more experience and you have the guys, right? The Jimmys and the Joes and the pros, and you got the guys, you got the Trey, you got the all-star, you got, you know, obviously Onyeka Okongwu, the bruiser in the middle. You've got who I anticipate being the defensive player of the year in this year's NBA season. You've got Dyson Daniels. When you've got guys like that, you don't lose to guys like this. And I know that anything can happen. I know people love to throw around any given Sunday, and everybody's a pro. Everybody's pro, so anything can happen. It's basketball, so on and so forth, regardless of the fact, okay? This is a Utah team that has entered the game on tonight with 16 wins, 19 consecutive losses in road games. That's the worst in the NBA, by the way. I think they're ranked last in terms of all 30 teams in the NBA. Obviously going to be the team that's more than likely going to be dipping into the I call it the Cooper Christ sweepstakes. Unless you've been living under a rock, you would know that I'm talking about Cooper Flagg from Duke, and he's going to be more than ready and available here in the next 2 months to hear his name called, and potentially we may even end up saying that this is the last time that the Atlanta Hawks are going to be playing the Utah Jazz without without Cooper Flag in a Utah uniform. But this is also a Utah team that has lost 8 consecutive, games. We're the Atlanta Hawks, and I understand that you're not necessarily on a winning streak yourself, right? You have to capitalize by winning games like this so that you can get back on the right side of things. And that's what they were able to do. I'm just hoping, in my own personal, I guess, just assessment and just kind of watching them and so forth, is that they didn't show their hand and empty the clip way too early. Because reality is, we all know what's next up. We all know what's coming after this game. We all know what's going to happen on Tuesday on the road in Orlando. That's the team that we're in tight competition with. And if the NBA season was to end on today, right, that we would be having conversations about the Atlanta Hawks and the Orlando Magic playing for the 7th spot, into winner gets the 7th spot into the NBA playoffs, represented by the Eastern Conference. So just hoping that wasn't the case. And again, I don't hope that we miss, or hope that shots aren't falling or what have you, but I'm just hoping that they just didn't have their very best game, if that makes any kind of sense, against a team that you really didn't have to have your best game against in order to beat. Don't know if that makes any kind of sense. All things being considered, the Atlanta Hawks ended up, pretty much outscoring and outshooting the Utah Jazz from every facet of the game and from every area on the floor. Better shooting from field goal on tonight, 56%, almost 57% for the Atlanta Hawks. What got into them, I don't know. And just for more confirmation as to wondering and curiously wondering what they had for breakfast, because they shot 53% from three, almost shooting better from three than they did from the field, where they shot exceptionally well from the field. I think all of those things are very, very telling. And some of it is, honestly, they did what they were supposed to do against Utah. I got it. Is Utah one of the better defensive teams in the league? They're not. I know it can be kind of frustrating for one homegrown product here in it, that out of Atlanta. From Pebblebrook, that being Colin Sexton, because I think that, if you've been aware watching what the high school scene is around here in the Atlanta area, you would know what type of competitor that he is and how he really gets after on the defensive end, not liking to lose. He's one of the better competitors that I think that we kind of have in this league. All things being considered, I'm sure that that's frustrating when you're playing for a team like the Utah Jazz. However, not really a whole lot that they can do. And I know that they tried, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the next segment in terms of how competitive they tried to make it before the Hawks ended up pulling away. But I think that is just more so just the fact that it was just a little bit too much Hawks, and just a little bit too much from the perimeter, even a little bit too much down low. Like, I understand we're talking about just outscoring Utah, 57% to 51 from the field, and 53% to 42 from three. And even in instances where they shot it extremely well from the free throw line at 85%, and they tied in that particular department, which I'm kind of curious if any of you out there and I appreciate you guys for chiming in with me here in the comment section. I'm going to get to some of those comments. When is the last time, a little bit of a challenge here, when is the last time that we have seen the Atlanta Hawks shoot? I feel like it's happened this year. I would say north of 55% from the field, north of 50% from three in that same game, and at bare minimum 85% from the free throw line. That within itself, I think, actually says something, because we always talk about how bad they've shot from the free throw line, in addition to how bad the Hawks have shot from three, or how bad they've shot from the free throw line, but didn't shoot as bad from three, or how bad they shot from three, but didn't shoot as bad from the free throw line, almost as if they were never really able to kind of put it together sometimes. And that's kind of been the concerning thing. You guys know me. I've been saying this all year long, saying it even in some instances last year, although we haven't said it as much this year as we had last year about this team, the up and down roller coaster ride. And the only thing about them that's consistent is that they are consistently inconsistent. And I think that we're seeing a good example of that. I'm just happy to see that they haven't been so inconsistent that they lose games such as this one, because, you know, let's pull the curtain back and really talk about what the reality is here. There are instances where this Atlanta Hawks team gets vulnerable. They beat teams that most people don't think that they should beat. You know, I think that we had conversations about them beating, you know, big, what they beat Cleveland 2 games back to back or something like that this year. They beat Boston. They beat, you know, they beat some big name teams. But then you see them losing games against teams that they shouldn't necessarily lose to, that being the Washington Wizards and, you know, the Toronto Raptors and stuff like that. So I'm just happy to see that they, you know, haven't gotten so much to a point where they don't have that pride about themselves and end up losing to a team who's only won 16 games this year, that being the Utah Jazz. So but when you start talking about outscoring the Utah Jazz in every facet, I would be remiss if I did not necessarily mention the fact that they dominated the Utah Jazz in the paint, 62 paint points to 42, and that's somewhat expected. I heard Onyeka Okongwu in the post-game interview kind of talk about how it was just different to see Utah try to run 5 guards out there at one point in time, which I know that is just a recipe for disaster. If you are the Utah Jazz, and that the Atlanta Hawks had some really, really good things coming their way. But I will say enough as to say that before we go ahead and cut to the break, that we actually don't have an answer to that yet. We're still going to try and find out what that answer is to my question. But there's a couple things that I want to go over real quick before we cut to the break as to what I thought were some key things that I felt like really needed to happen in this game. And in fact, we're going to leave that for a little bit of a tease. We'll get to that on the other side, along with our turning point for the game. Do you ever check your bank account and wonder, now, where did all my money go? You start tapping into your pockets and start kind of looking around and checking inside of your coat pockets and everything else, checking the wallet, checking the account, trying to figure out where in the world can I go to keep up with my money. If I don't do nothing else, I got to be able to find a way to be able to manage all of this. Of course, that happens because we all kind of go through those such things between dining out. Probably done a little bit too much of that already this weekend with being here in San Antonio for the Final Four. Online shopping, probably done a little bit of too much of that already leading up to the Final Four, trying to use a little something nice together as far as trying to look a little clean. And then even as far as the entertainment side of things, in case you like to out, enjoy the Atlanta nightlife, you got comedy shows, movie theaters, drive-ins, and so forth. It's all just so easy to lose track. Well, that's because you're not going to the right place. Where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, but it's also a complete financial command center where you can track all of your accounts, all of your investments, and all of your spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start actually building some wealth just a little bit. So I will say this much, instead of going through the things like juggling through all the apps where it's like, okay, well, for this account, I got to go over here and check this app. And then for my wife's account, I got to go over here and check this app. And then I'm trying to remember, God, I got a kid in college and they're probably spending like crazy. There's no way they're living like a college kid and eating just free, cafeteria food. They've got to be running through their money, but I got to be able to keep up with that too. So many different things you're trying to budget and balance here. You can do all that again just in one place, using Monarch to check your finances, track the spending, even plan long-term goals for your financial plans as well. So you want to make sure that you keep that in mind too, because they offer those services too. Managing your money with your partner even is much smoother, than ever, where you both have access if need be. You can track shared and personal accounts, set your goals together, relationship goals, and stay on the same page, all without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off of your first year.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
It's the turning point, people. Of course, what else could it possibly be we'd be talking about for this particular segment? Listen, I always try to go back and kind of look into, and I think that there was actually, and you wouldn't probably believe it if you didn't pay attention to the game, as the Atlanta Hawks kind of went up and kind of ran away with this thing. And you know what? Utah was fighting. Let's we don't necessarily have to stand up and give them a round of applause or anything like that. But let's full transparency. They were fighting, especially that behind their guard play, which, one of the concerning things for me in this game was the fact that you had somebody like a two-headed monster, if you will, of just combo guards that can probably counterpunch better than anybody else in the NBA when we're talking about explosive combos. I'd put this young group in there with anybody in the league. That one of them being Keontae George, where he's in his second year. He is second in scoring this season amongst those who are just second-year players, obviously behind Victor Wembanyama. But just dangerously explosive athlete, and the confidence and explosiveness pairing and that backcourt between he and Colin Sexton, I think, kind of speaks some volume a little bit. Is the team any good? Probably the team's really just not. No, they're not really a good team. They're also missing Lauri Markkanen on tonight. John Collins, our old buddy, who we kind of tend to miss from time to time. Feel like we haven't seen him the last couple of times that we played Utah. And even, of course, somebody who can bring some instant offense, sometimes off the bench, and just ignition, just starter, off the pine, and bring in, like I said, instant offense, high octane offense, and high volume shooting, that being Jordan Clarkson as well. So not having guys like that, which is some of their better players that are making a good little amount of money, not having them, I think, is something that could have made things a little bit more interesting. I'm not going to say they would have beaten the Atlanta Hawks, but just made things a little bit more interesting if they were on the floor. Of course, they weren't. And that's why we saw the Atlanta Hawks kind of pull away. And the one that kind of made it, even though I know the deficit got cut after this point, the one thing that I do think kind of made it that much more telling that the Atlanta Hawks was going to pull away and not going to allow for Utah to get within a certain amount is during the 9-minute mark in the second quarter, when Keontae George had a 3-point conversion and ended up cutting the deficit that they were once at well within double digits down to 5, a 5-point lead for the Atlanta Hawks, 47-42. And then out of nowhere, the spray saved the day. Beat Krejci converted on 3 3-pointers in a matter of 1 minute and 13 seconds, end up extending that lead on a 9-0 run all by himself. Beat Krejci, 56-42. And when all these things happen, I'm always going to be the person, like I always say, to stand up and raise my hand up, as much as I look like an idiot right now just doing it. Hello there. I will always be the person that will stand on 10 toes and say, when there's instances that I've been wrong about this dude. And what I actually like about V. Krejci is because you do have some guys that come off the bench and they shoot, or and that's just like their specialty. Like, I don't know if Vic Krejci really has a specialty besides passion, which I think is good about this team because he can come off the bench, he can shoot. You've seen him get on fire here on tonight. You also have instances where you can see him put the ball on the floor with confidence and go to the basket, go to the cup really strong, be able to finish there too. So I think that those are just a couple things that's probably some of the most, you know, strongest things about, his particular game. And it was good to see him go on this stretch here on tonight, to be able to lead this team to a victory in his own way. We'll talk about him a little bit later on in the segment, but I think the ability that the Atlanta Hawks had to do such things like, you know, get Zachary Risachet going kind of early. I thought when you're playing a team like the Utah Jazz, it's just something that you can afford to do. Of course, Onyeka Okongwu did what he was supposed to do. You dump it down inside and you establish it from that standpoint. We call it hungry hippo. 27 points, 12 rebounds for him, and only missed what, I think 4 shots or something like that on the night. Just double checking and stat checking that. So I think that he obviously had a really good night. And even somebody like Akiris LeVert came in 50% from the field, hit 3 threes for us on tonight, and made some really big contributions, showing that when it comes to this bench and this one thing that isn't consistently inconsistent. This is one of the things that has been consistent for this team all year long, is the production that has been able to bring from off the bench. 56 to 51 for the Atlanta Hawks in terms of the edge over the Utah Jazz. Now, why was it that close, you ask? I'm glad that you asked it, because this is a concerning part just a little bit from me. I don't know if they just if it was just his night. When it's your night, it's your night, and I'm all about that. I can respect that. But when there's instances that you got to go out there and get stops and kind of put Utah away, put the nail in the coffin, put your foot on the gas, and super glue the bottom of your shoe to the gas pedal kind of thing, where you just can't come up off the gas. I'm not sure that that's something that I feel confident that the Atlanta Hawks did, or maybe that was what happened on the offensive side of the ball, but just weren't able to get stops. And that concerns me a little bit about going forward. But I will say enough to say that the reason I feel that way a little bit, because yes, Isaiah Collier probably had a better game than I anticipated that he would. I know that he can have a good game, but he just probably had a better one than I expected that he probably would, although I do believe that they really needed him and his contribution if they want to keep it somewhat close. I'm just not sure that it was ever going to come to that at any point in time, but it wasn't just him, right? What turns out to be is the two-headed monster between Colin Sexton and Keontae George, the contribution that we saw and the production that we saw from him. How about this? 35 points on 10 for 19 shooting, hitting 7 threes, doing better than 50% from the three-point line for Keontae George, of course, adding in that 4 rebounds and 2 assists to go along with that. Kind of giving me that strong build, physical athleticism, frame and just mentality of one like a Russell Westbrook. Let me know if I'm the only one that sees such things like that, because that's kind of what, where my mind was going when I see what he was able to do on tonight. Obviously, we want to give some credit to the 2 guys that we feel like, and I just have to throw this out there because I never want them to be forgotten about. I know we could talk about the other guys all day long, but I definitely want to make sure I at least give a mention to the 2 guys that appears to be the more so leaders in different ways in a lot of cases, in on different sides of the ball, which I think is pretty clear, evident, between Dyson Daniels and Trae Young, who one goes for 23, the other goes for 19. We're talking about points. 6 assists for Dyson, 15 assists for Trae. Sometimes we tend to just get spoiled, and it's like these things aren't such a big deal. But then 50% from the field for Trae and Dyson both at 8 for 16. So not bad when you can go 16 for 32 between 2 shooters that definitely got a knack for being able to put the ball in the basket. So definitely want to show them some love as well before we definitely mention that, I do believe that in order to win this game, the Atlanta Hawks really needed to come out with a sense of pride and disregard the name on the front of the jerseys. And I don't necessarily feel like they played like they read the name on the front of the jerseys. I just don't think that they defended like they like they weren't reading the names on the front of the jerseys. Let's put it that way. And I thought that they needed to take the highest percentage of shots, attempt those on tonight and convert from those. And that they didn't necessarily do. But I'm going to tell you why I was perfectly fine with that is because although that was from three, the 3-point ball was just falling for them on tonight. And I don't think that they could afford to give Colin Sexton any confidence. He's a very, very confident guy. And I thought that they did that probably a little bit too much to my liking as the Atlanta Hawk um, ambassador, if you will, for Hawks fans and supporters here for the Locked On Hawks postcast. But Keontae George also being another one of those guys. Colin Sexton, from a confidence standpoint, I mean, listen, this is a guy that's shooting 40% from three this year. That's a career high for him. And he can light it up and get some runs started on his own. So it was good to be able to see that they were able to contain him. However, it'll be better if we can see a little bit more defense between he and or Keontae George kind of going off for the amount of points that they did collectively. We'll get back to some other stuff here on the other side of the break. We'll kind of preview a little bit of the game that we'll see on Tuesday night, which is a super important game for the Atlanta Hawks on the road. We'll talk a little bit about that on the other side and get into which player we saw on tonight. Kind of gave us a, I guess, our best, not description, but just our best outlook on what we saw from someone who was pretty much, well, perfect. There it is. Yep. That can only mean one thing when March Madness is on its way exit stage left. That just means that the NBA playoffs are almost here. And of course, FanDuel is giving, new customers an incredible way to get in on all the action. Everybody's been asking me about this. I'm tired of people asking me because I keep sending them to the same place every single time. So here I am giving you the answer key. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you get $250 in bonus bets if you win your win. If your bet wins. Slow that down and throw that back out there at you one more time. I got so many people asking me about it. I almost don't know which information to give them. Join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, and you'll get 250 big ones in bonus bets if your bet wins. And you know what? I love how FanDuel just kind of makes betting so easy. I've used it so many different times, currently still using it. I ain't put something out there on today where you could do all your over-unders, parlays, money lines, teasers, all of the above, whether it's picking up your favorite team, or diving into some of the player props, which is always a fun thing. I know that's what the cool kids are doing nowadays. Maybe not me as much, but I know my brother sure enjoys it. Whenever he does his betting, he always does it on FanDuel as well. So make sure that you be like Antoine and go out there and do that. Even from 3-pointers, steals, assists, FanDuel has so many different ways that you can bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tip-offs, you can even combine live prop bets into the same game parlay for a chance to win big. So don't worry so much if it's like, oh man, I had running to do, I had this and that and errands and had to put the baby in the bath and take a shower and had to do dinner for the wife and the kids and everything, had to do homework. I missed the game, and now all of a sudden I can't get my bet in because the game has already started, tipped off, and it's live. You can do it in live real time even after that game has already started. How do you do that? Let me tell you what to do. Whatever you do, don't miss out on the action. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Again, FanDuel.com. You see it there on the lower third graphic there at the bottom. Claim your $250 in bonus bets today. That's FanDuel.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
I gotta let you all know, as you see where we stand right now in terms of the player of the game. There's so many different ways and so many different guys and so many different players, so many different avenues, so many different layers to the onion that we can go with this particular player of the game, because there's so many guys that we have to choose from. Wow, could it be Onyeka Okongwu with his 27 and 12? That doesn't sound like perfect to me. How about Trae Young's 23 and 15? Dyson's 19, 6 and 6. Another one for him. 50% from the free throw, from the 3-point line, as well as the field. But I'm gonna go with Vit Krejci on this one. Perfection, perfecto. That's what we'll go with for Vit Krejci on tonight. 17 points, 6 for 6 from the field, 5 threes, going 5 for 5 from the 3-point line. Didn't miss a single shot tonight. How impressive is that for Vit Krejci? And I guess technically he went perfect from the free throw line because he didn't attempt any. So I guess he went 0 for 0 if you want to be super technical. There's no way that I don't think you can give this to Vit Krejci. I mean, for a guy who's come in and been a part of being whatever that you needed him to be for this team, he comes back from an injury. Before the injury, he's playing well. He goes out with an injury, misses significant time, some lengthy time. He comes back from that. It's like he never skipped a beat at all. And then even instances where you're bringing him off the bench and he's coming out being a fire starter from the 3-point line, and then doing other things with some of his trick plays. He's kind of becoming a fan favorite to a degree for the Atlanta Hawks. And so I think it's just good to see him come in and bring the spark, because while other guys do bring a spark in when they come in off the bench, whether that's Georges Niang, of course not tonight because he started, but whether that's Georges Niang with his 3-point shooting, whether that's, Terrence Mann, whether that's Karis LeVert, I think we all can agree when I say that Vit Krejci does those same things, but he just got a little bit of a different twist on it. He just does things just a little bit differently with the energy that he comes with off the bench. So I think that I would feel very comfortable saying that he is the one in which I feel the most comfortable calling our player of the game. Of course, make sure that you join us. We'll be right back here at it. And give us about, what's today, Sunday? Give us about 48 hours or so. This is the big one right here. As you can see, Eastern Conference standings as it stands right now: number 7 seeded Orlando Magic, number 8 seeded Atlanta Hawks. The winner, if they meet up, which is what we anticipate happening in the NBA play-in rounds, will advance into the 7th seed, and then the loser of that 7 and 8 game would have to play the winner of who we anticipate being Chicago Bulls, who's in the 9th spot in the Eastern Conference, and the Miami Heat, who's in 10th. So a lot of things can still shake up. It's still plenty of time. Obviously, having a big game against the Orlando Magic that is coming up. And that's not the only one. Even the last game of the season is going to be against the Orlando Magic at State Farm Arena. So we got 2 out of the next 4, 2 out of the last 4, that is, that are going to be against the Orlando Magic. That is going to play, huge dividends and benefits for the Atlanta Hawks if they're able to come away with a win. But we need everybody to be Hawk strong and true to Atlanta and cheer on our Atlanta Hawks as they get ready to prepare for the Orlando Magic, and perhaps maybe even be able to slide in with just enough time to be able to jump them in terms of the seeding. Remember to go check out my dude Brad Rowland from the Locked On Hawks podcast. Appreciate everybody for joining me. We'll see you guys back here, same place, same channel, in 48 hours. Peace up, A-Town down. Thanks for joining DeShaun Tate on the Locked On Hawks Postcast.